Hey, what's going on, everybody?
Hello.
How's it going? Welcome to Atticus Live. How are you guys tonight?
I'm Desiree, and this is
Cowboy Bill.
Jordan. We got the old cowboy hat out.
Yeah, so any of you guys who haven't joined one of our live streams, this is my authentic Guatemalan cowboy hat. And got it in Guatemala from a certified Guatemalan.
Yeah, actually, we should bring it to the States and maybe raffle it out.
Yeah, well, I really like this hat.
Yeah.
I don't know. So welcome, guys. Welcome to the live stream. So
who do we have in the house? We've got Sailing SV Someday. They've got their own YouTube channel. Darla and Steve. We got Christopher Keeler, Janice Portillo, Josh Green. We've got Clear Prop, Stephen Grenier. We've got Natalie Smith, who's helping me with the drawing tonight. Thank you, Natalie.
We got Josh Burns, Omar DeLeon, Glenn Early, David Kaufman, Steve Secord, Dirk Bernhardt. Yes.
SV Allegro, Lonely Ocean, Lisa Zach, Life on the Water. Hey, guys, thanks all for joining us. Well, before we get started, Hugh Van Dyne.
Hey, Hugh Van Dyne.
Before we get started, we want to have a couple of announcements. So, first of all, let's talk about the drawing that we're doing tonight.
Yeah, that's right. So, we're doing another drawing tonight. As you can see from my fancy technological graphics here, we are giving away 2 free tickets to the United States Sailboat Show this October. And we are going to be there, so if you want to come hang out with us and you want the opportunity to do it for free, then follow the instructions to enter into the raffle. And you'll notice one of the things that we say here is that doing contributions through PayPal is a lot better for us because Super Chat does take a cut. So
Huge cut.
Keep that in mind. And we're going to be thanking people that contribute on PayPal tonight.
Yes,
that's going to be my job because I'm Mr. Responsibility around here.
That's my job.
That is your job.
Yeah.
I'm lying.
Okay. I was like, no.
Yeah.
All right. Also, we wanted to mention that we are going to be at Cruisers University, guest speaking at Lynn Pardeys' course about how to make money while you're sailing. And Lynn is actually joining us tonight live. So thanks for being with us tonight, Lynn. And if you guys have any questions about what it's like to sail on a small boat, she's circumnavigated twice in both directions, so she is full of knowledge. So let's try to ask her some good questions tonight.
Yeah, so thanks a lot for joining, Lynn. We really, really appreciate it. She is, I believe you're joining from the Grand Canyon?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Very cool. Well,
Yeah.
the fact that you would hang out with us instead of just stare at that amazing view is really touching to me, so thank you.
It's probably the hat.
It's probably the hat.
Also, we're really excited because we are going to be at the Sailboat Show, and I've posted a description of all the events and meetups that we're hosting in the description below, including we're going to be doing a day sail with Schooner Woodwind on Saturday, October 12th. So the tickets are going really quickly. So if you'd like to join us on a sail during the Sailboat Show, check out the link in the description below.
Yeah, and so like Desiree is saying, there is a limited number of seats on that trip. I think it's 48,
Yeah.
I believe. And so we're going to be doing that on Saturday the 12th.
Uh-huh.
And so, yeah, that would be like probably the coolest way for us to hang out would be on that sail. You'll be in the middle of the day, super, super chill. And yeah, so definitely check out that link in the description, and hopefully we'll see you there.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And then, yeah, we're just, if you want to know anything about our schedule, check out the description below or our Facebook page. We have an event for the Sailboat Show. And if all that fails, just go to Lynn Pardeys' booth at the Sailboat Show, which is M5, and we'll be posting our schedule there.
Cool. Okay, rock on. Well, Glenn Early says, love the hat. Glenn, thank you. Appreciate it. And then Deadly he's got kind of a cool like letter number name. Anyway, he says Desiree's the best part of the duo. I agree with you, Deadly Foe. Deadly Foe. You and I are in agreement there.
All right, to get things started, I've got a couple of questions from just our patrons and on our Facebook page that we haven't gotten a chance to answer. So,
But that said, go ahead and shoot your questions at us, guys. Today is just ask us anything. We'll talk about whatever you guys would like to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
And then until we get a couple of good questions going, then we'll answer these.
Mm-hmm. Let's see.
Deadly Laugh. Okay, Deadly Laugh. Cool.
Oh, there we go. Oh, you know what? We answered those already. But let's start with Damon Carlos says, what is one item you would like to have on Atticus but can't because of storage limitations?
A family.
We could store a baby in the closet.
Yeah. No, I think we very well may start a family on Atticus. So I think young baby, he'll fit in here just fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, what is something that we would have? Okay, one thing I would definitely say, and this is like off the top of my head, so it's not like super important gear or anything, but a paddleboard, like a stand-up paddleboard. That's an example of something that on a smaller boat, it's really hard to make that work. You know what I mean? So, a lot of like hobby items.
I'm gonna turn your ring off.
Yeah, go ahead. So that's the first thing that I would say is stand-up paddleboard. We are talking about trying to find like inflatable paddleboards, but we'll see if we'll be able to make that happen.
Along those lines, another really good question was Goulash752 asked, in a previous post, I think you mentioned you wanted a Tiana because of the layout, but the few I've seen all seem to have different layouts. What's your dream configuration?
Well, okay, that's actually a great question because I've been doing a lot of thinking about what Atticus 2.0 is going to look like. Specifically because, we are starting to talk about having a family. In fact, we're getting a couple of good comments. Lisa Zach says, "Baby Atticus." What was it that...
Bud Light.
Bud Light. Was that Brad Scott's thing? In fact, I don't think Brad Scott's on here yet. Brad, if you're out there, give us a shout. But yeah, Bud Light will be joining us here in, I don't know, a year or two. We'll see. But in regards to the whole family thing, like ideally we want to have 2 kids. And so ideally Atticus 2.0 will have 2 different sleeping quarters, like separate sleeping quarters. And so because that's a new parameter that we're starting to have, I'm starting to look at center cockpits so that we could have some sort of a aft berth and then a forward berth. And then they could be separated. Now, I don't think that'll be necessary with particularly small kids, but once the kids get older, I think it would be kind of important for them to have a little bit of space.
Yeah, it's been kind of cool because in Panama, there are actually a lot of sailboats for sale. I think people make it this far and they're just like, I'm done with sailing. So we've had the opportunity to go on a couple of boats that have just been like derelict for a couple of years. And although it's like kind of crazy to go on them and see all the like mold and rot that happens over a course of a couple years, it's been really neat to look at different layouts and then also to come home to Atticus at the end of the day and be like, oh, you're small but like not falling apart.
So I got 2 good questions here that I want to shoot at. Greg Cox says, what food was your favorite in Belize or Guatemala? And I was just gonna say like not Belize, because Belize I wasn't a huge fan of the food in Belize.
Their chicken was really good, though.
Yeah, that's true. But what I was going to say is just the like not street food, but like the local restaurants in Guatemala. Like, it's really good food, and it's super cheap. Like, that's the cool thing. And we talk about this a little bit. Like, we don't really go out to eat very often because we're on a budget. But when you get to somewhere like Guatemala, all of a sudden you can go out to dinner quite a bit. In fact, I remember reading, I don't remember which of Lynn's books, but reading one of Lynn Party's books, probably Cost Conscious Cruiser, she talks about like sort of coming up with a number, like a figure that it costs you to cook a meal, right? And then if you can eat out for less than that number, then you can consider it free. Like you can do it whenever you want. And that was the case in Guatemala. Like I think we could go out to several restaurants and spend less money than we would cooking at home.
Yeah, when we were finding the right places, we were getting really big meals for like $4 a plate, and that came with coffee, eggs, porridge, bread, tortilla, like a big buttload of food. So that was awesome. I've got some questions too.
And then I just wanted to answer one real quick. Sailing SV someday, and I like how they phrase this. All your books are gonna fall overboard. Except for one.
Oh, nice.
Which one is it?
Da-da.
Way to, like, put that suspensefully. So, I gotta say, self-sufficient sailor would definitely be one. But because Lynn is here, I'm gonna say that and another one. I'm gonna say Beth Leonard's Voyager's Handbook. That one is just a book that I go referencing very, very frequently, just because it's one of those, like, she tried to think of everything that you're going to think about and deal with when you're cruising. I mean, it's just the time that would go into that is insane. So that's my favorite reference book. But from our position, Lynn Pardey's books are definitely the most applicable. That's for certain.
And then one question from Daniel Morris was, Desiree, did you already know how to sew before y'all started sailing? And as far as my book, it would probably be my reference book, which I use a lot, which is Canvas for Cruisers by Julie Gifford. And I use that like a Bible. Every time I'm about to sew something, I just go through it and kind of see if she's thought of a better way to do it. And no, I had no idea how to sew. I basically contacted Sailrite and said, I found your YouTube series and I feel like I can actually learn how to sew. Like, let's make this happen. And so I basically learned how to sew just by watching YouTube videos and like bugging the heck out of their customer support team. I'd call and ask all these questions. And then asking questions on the Facebook group Sewing on Boats, and then just kind of experimenting. So it took a long time for me. I think a theme with me in boats is a lot of the times it's just a matter of confidence. And I think sewing can seem very daunting, but once you get to a certain point, it's not as intimidating to make a mistake. And I think that's the biggest challenge I had to overcome with sewing, just like getting more confident about it.
Yeah, and I think with anything like sewing, like fiberglassing, like any of the skills involved that will help you be a better cruiser, better boat owner, the goal, to me, the most important thing is don't make any specific project your goal. Because when you're starting out with this kind of stuff, it's going to be so frustrating. It's going to take you so long that if like your goal is to finish this one thing in a reasonable amount of time, you're going to get really frustrated. So make the goal getting better.
Yeah.
And if your goal is to get better, you're going to feel like you're making progress. You're going to feel like you're not wasting your time. You spilled a little bit of water. But real quick, I did want to say that Lynn Pardey was thrown in another book there. What about Nigel Calder's books on engine and electronics on board? And yeah, I would totally agree. In fact, I'm really hoping to get an interview with Nigel Calder when we are in Annapolis.
Yeah.
I would love to talk to him about starting to, about electronics on boats, because he's really at that cutting edge of electric engines, hybrid engines, electric, like kind of elegant electrical systems on board. So
yeah, actually, Lynn, if you're still there, were there any things on that you would have liked on any of your boats, but that you were limited by storage? Kind of answering the same question we answered earlier. That'd be really interesting.
Absolutely. And then I did want to just add to that, Nigel Calder's, I believe it's the Cruiser's Handbook. That's another one that's really good. In fact, his table on the safe working loads for like your whole anchor system. So he'll give you safe working loads for line, for chain, for different types of chain. And the neat thing is that the connecting hardware, the lines, and the chain, they all use a different safe working load to breaking strength ratio. And so what Nigel Calder does is he equalizes them to have the same ratio, the same safety standard, and then gives you numbers that you won't actually get from the manufacturers. So that book is amazing too.
Yeah. Classic Boat Mike says, have you met Jamie Manzel yet? He's a well-known YouTuber that lives in Bocas Del Toro with his family. And Dave sent us a link to his YouTube channel and all of his cool projects that he's working on. So we haven't met him. When we're in like editing mode, we are total hermits and probably appear like the most boring people. So we haven't really explored much around Bocas or met many people. But when we do, we would love to get in touch with him. That'd be really cool.
Yeah. And then let's see here. We have Patrick Coate. Hey, Patrick, first of all. Says, freshwater would be a problem for such a long trip. What do you plan to bring? And so our thing that basically our new strategy is going to be water maker. So we are looking into trying to get the Spectra I can't remember which model, but the 200T,
yeah.
I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And basically that bad boy, it's a 12-volt water maker. It makes, it runs on about 10 amps, and I think it makes like 8 gallons an hour, something like that.
Yeah, we're debating between that and the Rain Man.
Yeah, exactly. And the Spectra looks better for us because in the middle of the day, on a sunny day, we can be producing 8 to 10 amps of electricity with our solar panels. And so what that means is every day on sunny days, we could run that water maker for 2 hours kind of for free. You know what I mean? And as long as we're not editing and using our computers heavily, we should be able to more or less make water completely sustainably. It's still theoretical at this point, but even if we don't quite keep up with the demand with our renewable sources, at the very least we'll be using very, very little diesel to keep up with it. So that's kind of an exciting proposition,
Mm-hmm.
like to just kind of have fresh water for free. I mean, obviously the maintenance on everything and that adds up, but it's going to be kind of a whole new way of looking at cruising.
Yeah. You want to do some super chat shout outs and I'll answer another question?
I would love to.
Cool.
So let's see here. We have.
While you're getting that ready, Jeremy Bacon asks, how do you do fishing licenses going from country to country? And essentially, we usually, whenever we check into a country, we'll just ask the customs agent, the port captain, anyone,
like what the deal is.
A lot of times they'll all say different things.
Most of the time they say, no, you can't buy a fishing license.
Yeah.
But then like you'll go online and like they'll have like a fisheries governmental department and it'll say like fishing licenses are available, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
And so the idea is that a lot, at least in Latin America, Central America, they just don't have the bureaucracy set up to actually sell fishing licenses.
Yeah, so you have to do a lot of research to figure out how to fish legally.
Yeah. Okay, so, but to just one additional point there, in countries that don't have strong, like, federal or state regulations, we will always ask people locally, like, what do you not want us to shoot? Mm-hmm. What is okay to shoot? Where do you want us to stay away from? We'll always ask people locally what they prefer, because in my opinion, that's even more important than the federal regulation anyway. Mm-hmm. Okay, so thank you. SV Someday says, let's get this boat rocking. Thank you. We got Rick Adams says, Sailboat Show. What's up, buds? What's up, Rick? Thank you very much. We have, let's see here. We have SV Spirit Libre says, hey guys, sitting here prepping for the hurricane. Glad you guys are not here in Southwest Florida. Yeah, well, good luck to you guys. Hope it all goes smooth to all you guys in Florida. We're definitely thinking about you guys. Mm-hmm. Okay, we have Patrick Coate. Hey, thank you very much, Patrick. And we have Shannon Dardar. Thank you, Shannon.
Thank you, Shannon.
Steve Duncan. Gracias, amigo. Stacy DePaolo. What's up, Stacy? Says, it's so much fun going on your adventures with you. It looked like you guys are getting some rain. How's the weather? And can you give a happy birthday to Warren Drums? It's his birthday today.
Oh, happy birthday.
So Warren Drums. Happy birthday, amigo. And, yeah, we have been getting a lot of rain here. It's so interesting. Like, we really like Bocas Del Toro. We really like the area that we're in. The weather is unlike anywhere we've ever been before. Because, first of all, like, half the time when it's windy out of the west, which is just such a mind trip for me. Mm-hmm. But, and plus, like, because there's almost never any wind here, the rain and the squalls and stuff, like, are almost completely unpredictable. Like, you can look and see a massive thunderstorm over that way, and I have no idea if it's coming this way or not. Like, absolutely none. Whereas in most of our trade wind sailing, if you see a thunderstorm to the west of you, to the south of you, and the wind's coming out of the east, like, you're pretty much good to go, unless it's obviously growing at a massive rate. So anyway, the weather here is just so unpredictable. But supposedly,
somebody was asking if we turn the vibrate off. I don't know how to do it on your phone.
You just keep pushing down until there. Okay. So anyway, that's So we've been getting all kinds of different weather, but supposedly we are entering into a mini dry season right now. So like from now until the end of October, it's going to be dry, which of course that's when we're going to be in the United States. So, oh well.
2 Watt says, I thought Jordan had parts to make a DIY water maker. I was looking forward to seeing that happen. What happened to that?
Yeah, I was looking forward to seeing that happen as well. Basically, I think what happened was I bit off more than I wanted to chew. And so
mostly time-wise also.
Yeah, it's mostly time.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, what the water maker that I had designed and that I was going to build was based around a cat pump that we had been given as a gift from our friend John back in East of Mujeres. A lot of you guys will remember John from Second Star, a guy I did a lot of work with. And he gave me this, nice cat pump, but it runs on relatively high RPMs, and it's a relatively high pressure pump. And so it was going to have to be belt driven. And so I was going to run it off the flywheel on the engine, but it was going to need a lot of fabrication. Like I was going to have to add a second wheel to the flywheel, get a belt going to like a tensioner, and then the pump, and that was all going to have to be mounted off the engine in very small spaces. And so it would have been possible, but I guess when I designed it and decided that that's what I was going to do, I was in a mind state where like we were planning on building the hardtop, and I just didn't realize that if you want to go cruising, you got to be really careful about what boat improvements you commit to, right? Especially ones that are going to take a lot of time. Mm-hmm. Because if you want to kind of build the perfect boat, you can take that time, but your goal has to be to build the perfect boat. Your goal can't be going cruising as soon as possible. And so I guess we started to realize that we wanted to go cruising as soon as possible, and we still kind of feel that way. Mm-hmm. At some point in the future, especially I think Atticus 2.0, like we might really hunker down and make that bad boy amazing, But right now, we want to get back out there as soon as we can.
Yeah, we basically laid out all of our priorities for the refit, and then we went through each project and estimated how much time it would take us to do those projects. And with our sifted through priority list that we narrowed down through 3 runs of prioritizing, it came to be 6 months in Panama. And so we just realized we need to be realistic about this, and probably right now it would be better to just go ahead and buy a water maker that's already made than spend all the time to try to fabricate one. And so that's basically what happened.
Yeah. Okay, so I got a good question from well, first of all, Pump Up the Volume says, thought you guys were going to Jamaica, then the Bahamas, up the East Coast to avoid hurricane season. What caused plans to change to go to Bocas Del Toro? So Pump Up the Volume, I don't want to avoid the question, but literally we have this exact decision-making process in next week's video. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to say, hold out till next week, and you'll get to literally see our entire process for making that decision, because it is a little involved. Julius Denard says, do you recommend sailing the world in sections by leaving the boat in place, returning to the States for work, then returning to the boat? So, we haven't sailed throughout much of the world yet. We've gotten to know the Western Caribbean pretty darn well. And the Rio Dulce is a great place for doing what you're describing. And we met a handful of people that do exactly that. So if your work situation is such that you can get, and maybe you're on a rotation and you can get you're 2 months on, 2 months off, or maybe you can get long vacations, you can get 2 or 3 months vacation every year. Leaving a boat in the Rio is a great option because the marinas are extremely cheap and offer a lot of services and a lot of value. And so they'll keep an eye on your boat. If you find good people there, you can even have people working on your boat. You got to be a little careful about that as an absentee owner, but still you can make that happen. And then you can fly in And then you're literally on the doorstep of Belize, which is great cruising ground.
Mm-hmm.
You got the Bay Islands, which are amazing.
Yeah, you could spend like half a year cruising the Bay Islands.
Between Belize and the Bay Islands, I mean, like, you could literally cruise for years without getting bored, right? Like, you'll be seeing some of the same places, but you won't be bored. And so for bang for your buck, like, just the ability to come in, go out, that's a pretty amazing setup. And I'm sure there's more situations like that out there, but the one that we're familiar with is the Rio, and there's a bunch of people that do it. So.
Yeah, I would say the most people that we've met who work while they're sailing, they do just that. They sail for a couple of months, leave their boat somewhere, fly home, and do work elsewhere. It's a lot harder to, well, you can find work in like cruising hotspots, but it really requires you to hunker down for a year or so to start building your reputation. And we kind of go into that in our last episode with Davey and Erica, and that's basically what we did in Isla Mujeres. But it's actually difficult to go to a place if you're doing boat work, for example, and try to start getting steady customers coming in so that you have enough work to last you throughout the year. So I would say it's an exception for people to actually be working and sailing, pretty quickly. I think if you're working and sailing, we've learned you just have to understand it's going to take you a lot longer to get around the world.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But it's really fun and rewarding. So, and you get to really get to know the local community a lot better if you're working there, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Lisa Hughes says, would y'all suggest a 30-foot boat or bigger? So first of all, Lynn, if you're there, I'd love to hear your comments on that.
Mm-hmm.
You're well versed in answering that question. But what I would say is, and what we've been kind of saying is, go with the smallest boat that you're comfortable with, because you're going to reap so many rewards from having a smaller boat. And like, I've gotten into this with a couple people, and they're always like, yeah, but what if this and that and this and that? Like, all I'm saying is the smallest boat you're comfortable with. That could be 40 feet, right? I mean, it very well could be. It's just, if this is your range right here, kind of start to really focus on the lower side of that range.
And what I would say also is, if you're buying a fixer-upper sailboat and maybe it's, you went as small as you thought you could handle, and you're at a dock, and let's say your limit is 36 feet, and so you're living on your boat, you're fixing it up, and it's 36 feet, and you're like, man, I wish I would have gone with a bigger boat because like my cockpit is so small and I can't entertain guests. But what the biggest lesson I learned is that it's so different working on your boat and being like sedentary than actually cruising on it. I think one advantage of going with the smallest boat you can handle is that you don't need those comforts as much as you think you do once you're out cruising. So I honestly don't think on a regular basis, like, man, Atticus is so small, this is terrible. Mm-hmm. I just think, wow, look at this awesome anchorage, and like, look at our backyard.
Yeah. Yeah, so. Exactly. And so Lynn got back and says, go small, go simple, go now. There you go. That's it. That was very eloquently put when you guys first said it, and I think it's still super, super pertinent. Mm-hmm. And just another thing that I'll add to that, we've met a lot of people whose cruising dreams did not become a reality because they got a boat that was too big.
Right.
We've never met someone who didn't accomplish their dreams because their boat was too small. Mm-hmm. That's never ever happened. And so it's all about like getting serious about, are you going to make it happen or not? Right. And so Lynn's phrase there, go small, go simple, go now, it's almost like I'd add one more thing to that. It's like, and actually go. Right. You know what I mean? Like, actually do it.
And I would say one danger of all these beautiful images on YouTube channels, including ours, is you get this idea that cruising is amazing and easy and effortless, and it's actually very, very difficult. And it takes a really strong personality and relationship if you're cruising with someone else to be able to handle the strain of staying afloat and getting from country to country. So your chances of failure are actually really high. And so again, if you can minimize the risk of not being able to actually cast the lines and start sailing, if you can do that by sacrificing a little bit of comfort, then we think that's the way to go. And that's what we did with Atticus. And I would do it again the way we did in a heartbeat.
Although, and I agree with that, but I think this is a really great other side of that perspective. Warp 21 Drive says, go with the boat you have, which great advice, right? Because even if it's not like the best blue water boat in the world, like there's still local cruising you can do. It's like, if you've got a boat, do some cruising on it, you know? And then, but then he also says, avoid fixer-upper, save that for the second boat. And like, what I'll say to that is that if you've got a good way of making money, like if you can make money doing something that you don't despise, then you got to really seriously consider just, you know, making the money to buy the kind of boat that you want, rather than doing what we did, which is spend very little money on buying a total fixer-upper. Now, if you don't have a way of money that you enjoy, then buy the fixer-upper and do it, right? Because it's worth it. And I'll say that all day long. But if you've got a job that you really dig and you're making some cash and you're like, well, I could buy that fixer-upper tomorrow, or in like, you know, a year or two, I could buy that boat, you know, without having to go through all that pain and struggle. Like, I don't want to say do that, because at the same time, like your biggest enemy is yourself, right? Like now I'll pull a great catchphrase from another sailing content creator, Sailing Uma. Like they said, don't buy a couch, right? And there's a lot in that, because of all the ways that you could fail, that we could fail, that your sailing dreams could not become a reality. Of all those ways, the scariest one is that you'll change, is that you'll decide you don't want to do it anymore. And so you'll get responsibilities that keep you from doing it. And so in a way, like you gotta take my advice with a grain of salt, because if you're gonna wait a year or two, you gotta be sure that it's gonna still work, right? Because in a year or two, who knows what's gonna happen. But so basically, I'm not saying anything useful. I'm like totally contradicting myself.
Throwing out thoughts. Another thought that I'll throw out is, I'm actually really glad that our first sailboat was a fixer-upper, because it allowed us to really understand Atticus really well. When you're first starting to learn how to cruise and get out there and do long passages, it's really intimidating. But knowing that you can handle a problem on your boat helps a lot with that confidence factor. And then beyond that, when we get our Atticus 2.0, when we're ready to start having kids, we are going to be so badass when it comes to being able to understand what we can fix on a boat and what we can, like what challenges we can handle realistically. So I wouldn't say getting your first boat as a fixer-upper is a terrible idea, because you learn a lot from it and you're doing it on a small scale, so you're not spending like astronomical amounts of money to learn these lessons. You're learning these lessons on this small little boat, where, you know, an anchor on Atticus costs a third of the cost of an anchor on like a 36-foot boat. So
yeah, so Lynn is chiming in and says, Larry and I spent 11 years circumnavigating on Seraphin, a 24-footer. Loved it. When we stopped to build a 29-footer, I missed that small boat. I could take the small one out sailing by myself.
That's cool.
Yeah, there's so much to be said for that. Like, it's funny because I'll meet people that sail on bigger boats, and like we'll be talking about leaving an anchorage, and I'll be like, yeah, you know that feeling like when the sun hasn't even risen and you pull up the hook and you just sail off your anchor, and they're like, no, we've never done that. I'm like, how long have you been cruising? They're like, 4 years. I'm like, you've never tried that? And so the idea is that bigger boats, it's like you start to have a harder time pulling off a lot of these maneuvers and everything else. So there's a lot of good things about smaller boats. There's a lot of good things about them.
I want to do some thank yous from PayPal donations. We've got Ronald Jersky, Peter Greenhalgh, Robert Wheatzel, Alan R. Markham, Michael Carlisle, nice. Janice Portillo, Wally Steadley, Lon Pribble, DSO Technologies, John Say, Thomas Holderith, and Karen Dewan. You guys are freaking awesome.
Okay, and we got Brad Scott in the house. Says, what I missed.
Yeah,
Just
where have you been?
Drinking a little bit of crack, Scott. Yeah, what the heck, Brad? You have like other stuff going on? Come on, man. What are you doing? Good to have you, Brad. We were talking about you earlier. Stiggy Salas. Hello, Stiggy. Thank you very much.
Cheers.
Kim Messer. Thank you very much, Kim. Chris Jones and Mike Chilson. Thank you very much. Mike says, hey, you guys, looking forward to following your new adventure in the Pacific.
We are too.
Thanks, Mike. We're excited to have you along with us.
Mm-hmm.
And New Frontier Project says, you guys inspired me for creating sailing videos. Just got started telling our story from taking sailing classes to boat ownership and crossing the Golden Gate in a year.
Oh,
Fair
cool.
winds.
Nice.
Rock on, New Frontier Project. Congratulations. And I think we are
caught up.
Just about caught up. We got Rick Adams says, for the, quote, Find Lazy Larry Fund. Laid off Larry.
I think we should make t-shirts with laid off Larry.
Dude, Larry was like my favorite thing. You know something is funny when I'm like editing and laughing.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is so awesome.
Got a question from Andrew Burr. He says, are wind generators worth having?
Yes, I am a huge wind generator fan.
Mm-hmm.
Especially because if you're serious about, getting fully sustainable with your electrical system and fully renewable, solar is great, but you got to have a lot of solar if you're going to keep up on a cloudy day. And so if you're in an area that's going to be cloudy, that's going to be a problem. And so, even in the Caribbean where you've got sun most of the time, in the winter you get cold fronts that'll last 2 or 3 days. And you get barely any sunlight at all. And so it's those times where having a wind generator is great. And so it's kind of neat because, we've talked about this before, when a cold front comes through, we've got all the electricity we can handle. We just can't, there's no way we can use up that much electricity.
Yeah, as long as we're in a safe anchorage. I love cold fronts. We've got the hard dodger. We've got good ventilation. You hear the rain coming down on the hard top.
As long as we're in a good anchorage and our neighbors have good anchors.
Yeah, that's true. That is true.
That's the funny thing. In fact, that one anchorage we were in Roatan, we our neighbors came over. They're like, so there's a cold front coming through, and we're like, yep, yeah, we know. They're like, yeah, we've got this kind of anchor and this much scope out. And they just kind of looked at us. We're like, yeah, we've got this kind of anchor and this much scope out. And they're like, yeah, okay, rock on.
That's a good way to do it.
It was very civilized and very cool because they weren't being aggressive about it. And so it was a neat way to just both feel comfortable about the situation.
That is a good way to do it. Yeah, because a lot of times we'll be in an anchorage and somebody will anchor really close to us. And I'm still figuring out the etiquette of how to be, direct and say, well, I think you're a little bit close. Also, what's your ground tackle like? Do any of you guys have advice about that? Drake Theon asked, did you ever get the air conditioner? And we don't have air conditioning on Atticus. We basically use my wind scoop, and then we've got a 12-volt fan called the Breeze Bandit. That we use when we're in marinas, and so far we've been able to get pretty far without air conditioning. There are some nights when it's really, really hot, but we have strategies for dealing with the heat. I have a spray bottle that I sleep with. We both have a Caframo fan right over our heads in the V-berth, so that helps us get through the really hot nights.
Yeah, but I am absolutely amazed at how we have become acclimated and we're okay without an AC here in Panama. Mm-hmm. We're I can basically spit and hit the equator from here, and we don't have an AC, and it's the summer. Mm-hmm. And we're lucky because we're kind of next to some mountains, so you get a little bit of cold Katabatic winds coming down at night, but still, it's almost like you start to realize that your body can really acclimate to almost anything. And it's the fact that if you do have AC, then the heat feels unbearable because you don't acclimate. I know I sound I sound like a redneck right now. I'm just I swear to God, if you just sleep outside in the heat, you'll be just fine. But like, it is true. I do believe that. Real quick, we have Larry Jobless in the house. What's up, Larry? So for you guys that don't see it, Larry Jobless is a viewer who made an account called Larry Jobless.
I like your thumbnail picture too.
Yeah. He said he wants shirts. He wants laid off Larry shirts. We should totally do it.
I've got a question from Tula Homak. Says, what is the best advice you have received regarding cruising or sailing?
The best advice? Mm-hmm. Go small, go simple, go now.
Yeah, actually, I would probably say that. And I don't know if you remember this, Lynn, but when we first started making YouTube videos, we were obsessed with Lynn and Larry Pardey, and we read a lot of their books, and I was so in awe by this couple who managed to do so much with these boats that they made themselves. So I actually got in touch with Lynn, and I sent her our trailer, which in retrospect, like if you're out there with your own YouTube channel, or you're thinking about starting a YouTube channel, you'll know that your first couple of videos absolutely suck. So now in retrospect, I'm like, oh, that was a bad video. But anyways, sent her the video, and she actually called me from New Zealand just to give us some advice. And I don't know if you remember this, but she was saying, just remember that the feelings that you have right now of the highs and lows and the stress and the excitement of like getting out there for the first time and casting the lines, like even just thinking about it, I'm getting teary-eyed.
Yeah. But
like it's going to be really hard to capture those the way that you feel right now. And so even though it sucks at times, just remember that you're living this really intense experience. And even like you just have to kind of recognize it, and recognize that when you're 60 or 70 and you're sitting around somewhere talking to your grandkids or friends and family, you're going to be talking about this adventure.
Yeah. So. And Lynn, that advice was really useful to us because I remember when we first got to Cuba, those weeks that we were in Cuba, our first international cruising experience, it was so intense that it was like extremely stressful. And here, let me just turn my volume down here. And so it was like, the emotions were so intense that it was like verging on the negative, right? Because it's just everything is new, and it's just so stressful for like a small period of time.
And it might be our personalities. We might just stress out a lot.
We're neurotic, I'm sure. But I mean, what I'm trying to say is that it would have been verging on the negative had we not had that advice from Lynn. And so every time it would start to get so intense that we would get stressed, Desiree would remind me. She'd be like, remember what Lynn was saying, we're going to look back at these weeks for the rest of our life because never again will this all be so new. And so like never again will like simply dropping anchor in a beautiful secluded place, like never again will the feeling of doing that be so intense. And so it was neat because we were able to remind ourselves of that regularly, and so that experience was more positive for it. So I think that's the perfect answer to that question.
Yeah, she said instead of saying you are too close.
This is the anchoring thing.
Gotcha. Oh, what did she say? I can't read that far.
Okay, well, so yeah, Lynn was saying in regards to how to make a friendly gesture with someone that you're a little bit concerned about anchored next to you in a blow. She says, instead of saying you are too close, say, how about securing alongside me and sharing a drink instead of anchoring? Then I'll know where you are when the winds shift. They usually take the hint.
That's funny.
That's great. I like that. Yeah, and then she says, poor man's air conditioning. Pour water on your T-shirt.
Oh, yeah.
So, real quick anecdote. When we were in Belize, and for some reason, the hottest nights that we've experienced were out on the islands in Belize, like the atolls. Maybe because we're so far from land, we didn't get any of the cooler katabatic air. I don't know, but anyway, the nights would be real hot sometimes. And so we would literally, it just made a routine out of waking up at 1 a.m. and like coming outside like more or less naked and just like spraying ourselves down with a spray bottle and just like standing in the wind and letting the water dry off.
We did that in Cayman too, behind all the rich people's houses. We'd just be out there like, oh my God. Got a couple of PayPal thank yous. We've got Carlos Berlanga. We've got Tim Simpkins, Jacob Estades, Stacy DePaulo, Tim Simpkins, Thayer Bigelow, Mary Miller, Hugo Andre, Dave Richmond, and Carlos Berlanga again. So thank you guys. That's awesome.
Yeah, real quick, Larry Jobless says, it's so fun just watching and following you guys. Could not imagine the stress. And I do want to just say that the stress has become extremely manageable for us now. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's probably a transition that most cruisers go through, which is the beginning is like, and I think, gosh, is this a Lynn quote that cruising doesn't make your life better, it makes your highs higher and your lows lower? And I think that when you're starting cruising, that's like very extreme. Like your highs are insanely high and your lows are like terrifyingly low, but it really mellows out. And so as you start to get more comfortable, as you have more and more experiences, you do like it does become easier. That said, like we were just talking to some friends of ours who sailed from Tahiti, somewhere in the South Pacific, to New Zealand, and they were talking about like the weather and the experience, and we're just like, oh man, like once we leave the trade winds, like we're probably in for a whole nother like bout of stressful learning.
We were asking them how their passage from what was it, someplace in Tangoa? Where are they?
Tonga? I don't remember.
Yeah, their passage from Tonga to New Zealand was, and they said, well, yeah, it was okay. It was difficult, but we didn't have to be rescued.
Yeah, right.
And they were saying
like, that's
really common out there. Crazy. Greg Cox asked, what is the most scared you have been on the boat? And I think that, again, goes into what we were just talking about, which is initially every new experience was really terrifying. But what's cool about every terrifying experience is that it raises your bar of expectations and your understanding of what your boat can handle. So the first time I was terrified was we were in the Gulf Stream sailing to the Dry Tortugas, and we were hard on the wind and it was really choppy. It was the first time we were going that fast on Atticus. In retrospect, it wasn't really a big deal, but I just remember being down below and hearing the water on the hull just like splashing by, and it was just really intense, and it was raining, and we didn't have the hard dodger, so you're in the elements. So I remember being really scared at that moment, but everything was fine. Atticus handled it. Jordan was a great captain and, got us through it. So I think that's probably the most scared I've been.
Yeah, probably.
Or the pirates.
Yeah, that's the most scared I've ever been. Yeah. Well, you guys will see in a couple episodes coming up, as we were transiting past Nicaragua, we had some trawlers, like fishing trawlers, heading right at us. And it was when we were in the area affected by piracy, which turns out probably another good thing about having a small boat is you're not a very good target for like large piracy-prone trawlers, because like they probably took one look at us and they're like, that's not worth it. But yeah, I mean, they were heading straight for us, and I was terrified. Like, it was the first time in my life where I experienced like a moment where I froze. Like, I was like, I was like, I don't know what to do. This giant trawler is just barreling towards us. And so anyway, that will be a fun episode. And I did want to say that Lynn was saying, and it is a great point, I didn't know that. She says, just remember to credit Larry. Remember that. Thanks, Lynn.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And then Lisa Hughes was asking, we have been offered a 1979 27-foot Hunter for free, but it needs some cosmetic work like paint on the outside, but it has 9 new sails. Wow. And a new head. It doesn't have any nav station or anything else. Not sure. What do you guys think? I would say, if you're getting a free boat, take it out and go sailing on it. Play around with it, right?
Yeah,
as long as it's safe.
I didn't hear I didn't internalize a lot of the particulars.
She was saying they're being offered a 27-foot Hunter for free that needs some cosmetic work. Mm-hmm. And it has new sails, and she says they're not sure what they should do about it.
Yeah, I mean, sounds great. Free boats are hard to beat.
Yeah.
But I will say, whenever I hear that phrase, it just needs cosmetic work, like, that is not true. Like, even Atticus needs work that's non-cosmetic. Like, every boat needs work that's non-cosmetic. And then you hear there's a free boat that doesn't have any non-cosmetic work that it needs. It's like, that's a lie.
Right.
Now, how much of a lie it is a great question,
Mm-hmm.
and there's one way to find out. But shoot, I mean, if it's a free boat, you can, take all the cleats and winches off that bad boy and put it on another boat, right? But just anytime you hear like all it needs is cosmetic work, just needs a little bit of varnish and some paints, like, that's
Right.
not true.
And for example, when we bought Atticus, it was advertised as like almost ready to sail, and the rigging is pretty much ready to go.
To quote,
Yeah.
it said like the gear is 80% ready to go and the sails are 90% ready to go.
Yeah.
And like, we replaced all the sails and it basically had almost no functioning gear.
Right.
So
and we replaced all the rigging, and I remember we're super conservative people, and so when it comes to risk management, and so I remember we didn't want to sail Atticus before we had done a proper rig inspection, and at that point we decided let's just replace all of the rigging so we don't have to worry about it for 10 years. And there's a lot of I would say peer pressure in the boatyard and amongst our neighbors in the anchorage. They were saying, you should just get out and sail that thing. And I remember we took Atticus out for a motor, and Jordan like hung up our hammock, and the rigging just started popping.
Yeah, I hung the hammock from the forestay to the mast, and like I sat on the hammock, and I'm like sitting on it, and we just hear like boom, and we're like, what? And like look around, and the backstay had parted, like literally just gone from me sitting on the hammock. So
yeah,
that's,
so if you're being offered a free boat, I would say play around on it, but make sure you have someone who knows a little bit about sailing. Take a look at your rigging, and make sure it's safe, or you have Towboat USA.
I was just gonna say, just get Towboat US, right?
Yeah.
Like, go break that thing, like go break it, and then be like, yeah, Towboat, this is gonna suck for you, but
right. We'll wear a life jacket and a tether. Then be safe. Let's see, and then Harry Cash was saying, I'm seeing all these boats on eBay that are going for a few $100s or a few thousand. Most of them are made in the 70s. And that's another thing. A lot of people send us listings to boats that they find, maybe like a 42-foot boat that's ready to sail for $10,000. And again, the first reaction we have is, there's a reason that's being sold for $10,000. What are those reasons?
Right. Yeah, it's like I was saying last week. It's the phrase like, there's no such thing as a free lunch. I saw a couple people say there's no such thing as a free boat. There's also no such thing as a cheap boat, right? Like, in my opinion, you're just gonna pay for it one way or another, and like it's just better if you kind of internalize that. Like, I almost think it's bad when you see these like unicorns on YouTube of people who like found the perfect deal, right? Like this like amazing boat for almost no money. Like, they probably exist, but they exist way less frequently than you think. And even then, like, it's still going to involve a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. But I did like, Lynn says that another Larry saying I always remember, as to any maintenance, if you think about it, do it. Mm-hmm. That's a great point. Yeah, I like that a lot. Mm-hmm. That's a really good point. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you can't mess around, especially if you're going to go offshore, you just can't mess around with having these like iffy things going on with your boat.
Chad Towner said, I paid $63K for my CD 36. I spent $65K getting it ready and did most of the work myself. A lot of it was redoing the previous guy's work. Yeah, so you got to be tough to do a boat refit, and you have to try to not be so hard on yourself, because if you're doing a refit for the first time, it's like almost impossible to be good at it. And so you have to factor in like, double your budget and double your time to learning the lessons of how to actually refit a boat properly. Like, we were actually just going through our electrical system, and Jordan was like, oh my God, I knew nothing about wiring, and I would do it so differently if I had to do it again.
Yeah. And I mean, just to reiterate your point and like what Chad is saying, like, to me, the really negative part about this idea of like buying a great deal, finding a great deal, and I paid this much and it's great, is like it'll make you feel shitty about like how much you're spending and how much time you're spending on the boat, because you're comparing yourself to these like imaginary ideals which in reality aren't real. Like they're so rare that they might as well not exist, right? And so there's no need to compare yourself to that. And so I'm not trying to be pessimistic. I'm trying to do the opposite. I'm trying to say like the work you're doing right now, like that boat you've got, that refit you're doing a good job. Like just keep working hard and then know that you're doing a good job. Because I beat myself up like big time when we were doing our refit. And people would walk by the boat every day being like, "You're still here?" Yeah. Or like, this one guy would always say, like, "What, did someone give you that boat?" And like, we bought it for pretty cheap, but we paid money for it, right? Like, he's giving me a hard time. But you know where that guy is? He's still in the boatyard in Key West, right? Like, so you gotta just have this, like, this tunnel vision of, like, the goal is cruising and just go for it. And all this stuff about, like, you need to not spend any money or you're a sucker or you need to get a great boat for nothing or like all that stuff. It's like, just keep your eye on the prize, which is making your dream a reality.
And I would say one benefit that we found in buying a 30-foot boat was that we were able to spend, we were able to prioritize putting good systems on Atticus and getting really good gear. And so even if you get, a 42-foot fixer-upper sailboat, and you have the same budget as we would have on fixing up Atticus, that budget is going to go a lot farther on a smaller boat than it is on a bigger boat. So I would just throw that in there.
Yeah.
Albert Miles says, "How long can you hold your breath when free diving?"
Realistically, I can reliably do it for about a minute and a half. And then I think once I get into the groove, it's probably closer to 2 minutes. So it's nothing like mind-blowing. It's just kind of amazing how much you can accomplish in 2 minutes underwater. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I'm probably at like a minute and then a minute and a half when I'm in the zone.
When you're in the zone, you're just as good as me, for sure. Yeah, like the kitty wake from today's episode. That wreck, the propeller is at 70 feet. And I remember I went down and got to the propeller and then came back up. And I was like, good. Like, because 70 feet is kind of like getting toward my max. And Desiree goes down, but there was a little bit of a current. And so when she was, like, doing her breathing, she was so relaxed that she was drifting away from the propeller sight. And so by the time she, like, starts to go down, she's, like, probably like 50 feet, maybe 100 feet away from the propeller. So I'm like, oh, this is too bad. Like, she's just going to blow this dive. So she's going down, 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 and then, like, kind of levels out at the bottom, and she's like, oh, shoot. Yeah. So now she's, like, swimming to get to the propeller. And I'm like, there's no way she's going to make it. And she did. She got all the way to the propeller and then all the way back up. I'm like, holy smokes, like, you basically just swam, like, down and sideways, like, 150 feet, true. On one breath. Yeah. So that was impressive.
Yeah, I guess for me, free diving works better when, like, wreck diving, I really do well because there's a concrete goal. Whereas when we're free diving, like, reef, sometimes it's not as motivating to get down there because maybe you'll scare away the fish and you won't see any, or, but like diving a wreck and getting to the propeller, it's like this concrete goal, and I'm able to push myself a lot more. So.
Yeah. Real quick, Dean F says, "You looked pretty chill near the prop, brah." And I actually had thought about that. Like, when I was watching the episode, the footage of me going through the propeller, like, I looked like I was high or something.
You kind of are.
Literally, when you do the breathe up process, like, the goal is to get so relaxed, like, more relaxed than you really get at any point in your life, right? Like, almost to the point where you're, like, in a dream state, right? Because then you don't need oxygen nearly as much. And so I was kind of self-conscious. I'm like, man, I look so stupid in this shot because I'm just like,
Yeah.
but like inducing that state is almost the goal,
Yeah, I think Jordan is really good at getting in that relaxed state, like that relaxed state. For me, for whatever reason, just because I'm so in my head, it's a lot harder to get there. I do this weird thing with my mouth. You might see it. I like blow bubbles, and it wastes a lot of energy. And if I didn't do that, I'd probably be able to freedive a lot better. But I don't even know I'm doing it until I see the footage. I'm like, what are you doing?
Right. So Chad Towner has a great comment. He says, Jordan, do you calculate the surface area of that hat into your sail area totals? And actually, yes, I do, because I've noticed that we get a little more weather helm that I want when I'm wearing this hat, so I have to take it off. But then if we're going downwind, I just stand on the bow and we're good. But anyway, yeah. I should probably do some super chats.
Yeah, we should probably do our giveaway also. So I'm going to do a couple more thank yous on PayPal as well.
Yeah, so,
and then if you haven't had a chance to get your drawing in, now would be a great time.
Yeah. Oh, and I just saw a comment from Lynn way long ago. She was saying right now she's cruising on a 40-footer. Sure, harder to find an affordable place for her in a marina.
Oh.
Yeah, I can understand that. It's that's another huge benefit, is it's a whole lot cheaper. Okay, so a couple quick shout outs. Chad Towner, thank you very much. We've got Bill Shea, thank you very much, says here's some for your water maker. Hey, thanks Bill, appreciate it. Rick Adams says, vote for Bud on Atticus t-shirt.
Nice.
Rock on. Then David Daly. Thank you very much, David. We've got Dennis Anderson. Muchas gracias, Dennis. Heather Gray says, Sailboat Show. All right, Heather, you're in for the money. SV Spirit Libre says, I paid $1 for my 1979 Vindo 50. She is 35 feet, and thus far I have a few thousand into her. Another month and she should be ready.
Nice.
Rock on.
Awesome.
Very cool. Then we got Mega Note says, keep on keeping on, Buzz.
Aw, thank you.
Rock on, amigo. And Brad Scott says, give my Sailboat Show tickets to someone else. I just spent my budget on Super Chats. Brad, we're going to see you at the Sailboat Show. Don't kid yourself. All right. I hope you can make it.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. You got any more? I got some.
No, go ahead.
Okay, we've got Caring Hearts for RIT Cats. We've got Viper Panels, West Shore Corporation, Warren Drums, Susan Osterlund, Robert Godsey, Warren Drums again, Mark Olson, Deborah Haight, Denise Newman, Greg Keister, and Debbie H. McCrossan. Thank you guys. This is awesome. All right, you answer some questions and I'm going to get the drawing going.
Yeah. I'm just seeing a lot of comments about, like, how, of course now I miss them, but like, people are saying, like, one guy was saying, Dan Etherton is saying the most expensive horse I ever had was free. I love that concept. And again, it's just like trying to, like, have a realistic expectation before you get into anything like this. In fact, I get so frustrated at the whole, the competition, right? Like like my refit, I did like all this work and it only took me a month, like I work 24 hours a day. I don't need to sleep or eat. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And that just frustrates me so much. And so I think the last Cruising World article that we wrote, I think they changed the title, mm-hmm. but we titled it, The Cheapest Refit of All Time, because like the article is a little bit about, like, just my frustration with this whole competition that people have. And so the idea was, like, to try and, like, claim that we had the cheapest refit out of anybody ever. And so all, my parting words with this whole concept is, I guess I'd like to speak for the people out there that are, like, really bummed and giving themselves a hard time and kind of unsure of themselves. Like, you can do it. You know what I mean? You can do it, and don't let, people trying to stroke their egos, like get you down. You know, just stick in there and keep going.
Sorry, I've just got to do a little bit more.
And then Tamara Desmond says, how do we get in on the giveaway? So we've got instructions right here in this technological box of text wisdom. And other than that, contributions over $5 get you into the...
And make sure you say Sailboat Show in your comment.
Get you into the raffle, and you got to say the word Sailboat Show in your comment, just like Unconventional Me says Sailboat Show. Thank you very much, Unconventional Me. And then Sailing SV Someday says, you gotta auction that hat, dude.
I know.
Can't make the Sailboat Show, but we love you guys. Well, that means I gotta do another trip to Guatemala, because I've gotten pretty fond of this hat, you know? Like, what else am I gonna wear when people, like, those few occasions when we actually are social, you know? Like, how else am I gonna be, how else am I gonna peacock around, you know? This is my peacock hat, you know?
All right, we've got a winner.
We've got a winner?
We've got a winner.
Holy smokes. Okay. All right, let me get... Oh, boy. I'm nervous.
Are you ready?
Okay.
Can you handle it?
I don't know.
Heather Gray!
Heather Gray!
Congratulations! Yeah, just shoot me an email, des@projectatticus.com, and I will get you all set up for the Sailboat Show, and we hope to see you there. And again, for those of you who are just joining us now, we have all the events that we're going to be hosting or attending at the Sailboat Show in the description below, including a sail on a really cool schooner. We're doing a book launch with, well, not our book. We're going to be at Lynn Party's book launch. And what else? We've got a couple of meetups and fun things going on. So check out that description.
Real quick. SV Someday has a great comment. He said, if they name the kid Bud Light and I, SV Someday, wins the eventual hat auction, you, Brad Scott, can have the hat. That's very generous of you, SV Someday. That's awesome. I'm not going to lie. I very well may call the kid Bud Light. Yeah, I do like that. I do like that nickname. Hey, wait, does it count if I just... Like, if it's the nickname, or does it have to be the legal name of the child?
Middle name Light.
Yeah. My name is Jonathan Bud Light Wicht.
No, Bud Light Wicht. So Bud's first name, Light.
No, because I have two middle names. So in the Wicht family, it's like tradition to have two middle names. I think the two middle names of the child is going to be Bud Light.
We should definitely do that.
Yeah.
Or we have two kids. Call them Bud and then Light. And
yeah.
only talk to them at the same time.
Yeah. Or we could do, like in Talladega Nights, name him Walker, Texas Ranger.
Oh my gosh. All right, guys. Thanks so much for joining us today. We'll probably be doing another live stream in the next couple of weeks. So check out our Facebook page and our community tab on YouTube to find out more about our live streams. Also, you can always text the word Atticus to the number 43506, and that information is in the description below to receive a free text notification 15 minutes before we go live, so you'll never miss another live stream, and that is free for you, but only available in the United States and Canada.
Yeah, and I do just like to say that whole text deal, it's actually really awesome, just because there's zero, like, weird stuff. You don't get any messages from, like, third parties, whatever. And just you never really have to keep touch in when our live streams are going to be. You'll be notified. Boom, jump online. Mm-hmm. You can hang out with us. Mm-hmm.
And yeah, thanks so much for joining us tonight. And thanks to our patrons who make this possible. You guys are amazing. If you guys want to get a backstage pass into Project Atticus and what we do day to day, you can consider becoming a patron. And the link is down below. And other than that, we hope to see you guys next week.
Real quick, just going to read Lynn's final comment. Says, enjoyed my first live chat with you two. Looking forward to time together in Annapolis. And for the first 500 members of the Women Who Sail Facebook page, there is a wristband waiting for you at M5. Cool. So there you go. So sign up on the Women Who Sail Facebook page. And then come try and hang out with us and Lynn, and you may be able to get a wristband at her booth at the Sailboat Show. Mm-hmm. And real quick, we can't stop without thanking Dave. Dave, you are amazing.
Yes.
We love you, amigo.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I like you. You know what I mean? Desiree loves you. I like you.
I love you.
Yeah, that's how it goes. Thanks, buddy.
Dave's
We
my
really
homeboy.
appreciate it.
Yeah, really. No, for those of you who don't know, it's kind of hard to keep track of the comments, so Dave helps me kind of stay organized and sends me interesting questions and comments. So without him, this would be a lot more boring.
Yeah. That's we should make a t-shirt that says that, like, I heart Dave.
Yeah.
That would be a cool t-shirt. Yeah. It'd be funny because, like, people would show and be like, who's Dave?
You don't know Dave?
Be like, dude, you gotta buy this t-shirt.
Also, you can see Dave's name with a little wrench next to him, and his name is Blue. If you click on him, you can see his YouTube channel. He's doing a refit of his own boat over in Ireland. So, really interesting channel. Check it out.
Cool. All right, guys. Well, we will catch you guys next week. And if you haven't watched the episode yet, watch today's episode. It's really, I think it's really good.
Totally
I'm
unbiased.
Kind of biased here. Got a horse in this race. Yeah.
All
right, guys.
Take care, guys.
Cool. Have a good night.